Guys, this is me, Sammy. Welcome to my English classes. Before I begin, I just want to give you a brief introduction of myself. I've been teaching English to ICSE, ISC, and CBSE kids for the last 9 years. Unbelievable, but yes, true. I've been teaching English, language, and literature for the last 9 years now. I started this YouTube channel way back in 2020, I think, or maybe just before that. But then I couldn't continue because I left and then I went for my MBA. So there was a gap of 2 years. But now I'm back again and I've grown up. I'm 26 now. I love teaching English, but I don't have a graphic designer yet. So our classes will be very low key. You won't have a lot of graphics coming on the screen and everything. What I want you to do is just open your book, the Flamingo book that is prescribed to CBSE class 12, and just follow along as I explain your poems, stories, all the chapters to you. Just follow along and you should be fine. So we are going to begin with a poem, My Mother at 66, which I believe is very much there in your syllabus. You cannot take it lightly. But before we delve into the poem, I want to introduce you to the poet first, because I think that is very important. So the poet, obviously, is Kamala Das. She's one of my very favorite poets, and she's also known as Kamala Suraya. And she gained fame as a pioneering Indian confessional poet. Why confessional? For her bold, raw explorations of very interesting topics indeed, like female sexuality, identity, love, desire, and womanhood in English as well as Malayalam literature. Her autobiography is named My Story. It was published in 1976 and it scandalized and captivated readers by detailing her unhappy arranged marriage, extramarital affairs, and quest for autonomy, making her an iconoclast in conservative 20th century India. You must understand that as a woman writing so blatantly about these truths, when a lot of these topics were topics of stigma itself, it's very hard. It was very difficult doing that, in the mid 1900s. Some more interesting facts about the poet is that she won the Asian Poetry Prize in 1964, the Kent Award in 1965, and she was also nominated for the Nobel Prize in Literature in 1984. Can you even imagine? And she was later called the mother of modern Indian English poetry by the Times in 2009. At 65 years old, she converted to Islam, taking the name Suraya amid rumors of a younger lover, yet she continued writing fiercely until her death. She was also married at 15 years old to a much older banker, and she bore 3 sons by the age of 23, channeling her marital despair into erotic feminist poetry akin to Sylvia Plath's. She also used a lot of pseudonyms. She penned over 20 books, spicy columns on politics and women's rights and Malayalam stories that won Sahitya Academy Award. She was born into Kerala's literary elite, yet she rejected privilege for visceral honesty, urging women to embrace desire unapologetically. A very, very, very brave stance for women of her time. Okay, so now let's get into the poem finally. For this poem, the speaker you can assume is the poet herself. Please do not use the word poetess anywhere because it's no longer acceptable. Poet is a neutral term, so please go with poet, even though Kamala Das is a woman. So let me read out the poem to you first. Driving from my parents' home to Cochin last Friday morning, I saw my mother beside me doze. So Cochin is the name of a place, as you can understand. So while the poet was driving from her parents' home, so the parents' home was somewhere near Cochin. She was driving from her parents' home to Cochin on a Friday morning. She saw her mother beside her doze. Maybe the mother was sitting in the passenger seat right beside her, and she was dozing. Like, dozing means almost about to fall asleep. Half asleep. When you're dozing, that is half asleep, almost half asleep. Open mouthed, because she's growing old, and the jaw muscles have relaxed. They tend to relax as you grow older and older. You tend to lose control over them. So her mouth was open as she was half asleep, dozing in the car. So she was open mouthed. Her face ashen like that. So her complexion had turned gray. Face ashen meaning like ash. And the color of ash is gray. So what it basically means is her complexion had started to become gray. It had started to turn dull with old age, which is a natural process and it happens to everyone. Ashen like that of a corpse. So here the poet is doing something really interesting. She's almost comparing her mother to a corpse and in a way predicting that her mother is probably going to die very soon. She's predicting the inevitability of her mother's death, of a time that her mother will no longer be there with her. So even when the mother is alive, she's looking at her mother and comparing her to a corpse inside her head. A corpse means a dead body. I hope you know that. And then she realized with pain that she was as old as she looked, but soon put that thought away and looked out at young trees sprinting, the merry children spilling out of their homes. But after the airport security check, standing a few yards away, I looked at her again, wan and pale, as a late winter's moon, and felt that old familiar ache, my childhood's fear. But all I said was, "See you soon, Amma." And all I did was smile and smile and smile. So, a very, very poignant poem, I have to say. So, I have already explained the first few lines to you. The poet was driving from her parents' home to a place called Cochin on a Friday morning. These are important details for your MCQs. It was a Friday morning. And she saw her mother beside her in the passenger seat, dozed. Dozed mean almost about to fall asleep, half asleep, open-mouthed. Her jaw muscles had relaxed, so her mouth was falling open as she was dozing. Her face ashen. Her complexion had started to dull and turn gray because she was growing old, like that of a corpse. The poet is saying here that her mother almost looked like a dead body, like a corpse. Just like a corpse's jaw muscles completely relaxes, right? They're not able to, keep their mouth closed like we can do because we are alive. So that is exactly what was happening to her mother. And when she saw that, obviously, she was filled with a certain kind of fear, but mostly pain. And she realized with pain that she was as old as she looked. She realized that her mother was really growing old. And there was no way she could hide that. Her mother was as old as she looked. She looked like a corpse because just before, in the previous line, the poet here is comparing her mother to a corpse. So this line, she was as old as she looked. If she looks like a corpse, then she must be very, very old. She was almost on the brink of death. She was almost on the verge of demise. That is what you need to understand. So that is why it pains the poet to realize that she was about to die very, very soon. But then she soon put that thought away because it's a very uncomfortable thought to have. We cannot think of the death of our loved ones. It fills us with dread, it fills us with anxiety, with pain, and all the kind of emotions that we don't want to feel. So that's why she was forced to put that thought away. Rather, she focused her attention on something else. Now, what is she focusing her attention on? This is very interesting. She's looking out at the young trees sprinting. Young trees outside the window, outside the car window, sprinting. Now, the trees cannot sprint. Sprint means, running very, very quickly, running at full speed. That is what sprinting means. Now, trees cannot sprint because they are rooted to the ground. So why is the poet using the word sprinting here? Because the car was moving, obviously. So if you look out of the car window, it appears as if the trees are, running in the opposite direction, right? So that is why she's using the word sprinting here. Okay, it's almost like a transferred epithet. It's the car that was actually sprinting, but she's transferred that and made it a quality of the trees, which were actually stationary. So she's looking at the young trees and also at the merry children spilling out of their homes. Small little children running out of their homes. She's looking at them. Merry means happy. The children looked really, really happy, active, energetic, full of life because they were children, they were young. And why is she focusing her attention to these things? See, there is one thing that is common about these trees as well as the children, and that is they were young. children, they are young, they are kids. And trees, she specifically used the word young trees. And it's also in capital letters, young trees, almost as if the trees are being personified. Because just the word after that, sprinting, is a verb that only human beings can do, sprinting. Human beings and animals, they can sprint, but trees cannot run. Right? So non-living things cannot sprint. Trees are not non-living, but they cannot sprint. But since the trees are shown as sprinting, the trees have been personified here, and that is why these capital letters are being used. Young trees. And then the merry children, they were spilling out of their homes. Both of these trees and the children, they are young. The picture of old age that she could see in her mother traumatized her so much. It filled her with so much dread that only replacing it, displacing that feeling with the complete opposite feeling, could provide her comfort. So, from the picture of old age, she's focusing her attention on the picture of youth, spring almost. If her mother's age could be compared to the season winter, the young trees and the merry children could be compared to spring. So she was displacing one feeling with the other by focusing on two different images which were poles apart from each other. So now she's reached the airport, but after the airport security check, standing a few yards away, I looked at her, wan, pale as a late winter's moon. She looked at her face again after the security check. She was looking at her from afar, obviously, because her mother won't be allowed inside the security check. So she looked at her again. Wan, pale. Wan means dull, dry, almost dead. And pale, you can understand the color is lacking from her face because she's growing old. And she compares this picture. Oh my god, there's so much noise. Some construction work is going on in both my neighbors' houses, and so this is my condition here. I'm having a terrible headache, and recording videos has become practically impossible, but still I'm trying my best. Please cooperate. So she compares this face of her mother's that she can see from the security check to a wan, pale, late winter's moon. See, I just told you about the season winter and how that can be compared with the age of her mother. Here you get the same reference, late winter's moon. So it's not a winter morning, it's a winter night. Okay, it's a winter night and it's late winter, not even early winter. So she wants to say that her mother was like really old, almost on the verge of death. So late winter's moon, it's not even winter daylight, it's winter night. And it's a late winter's night. So she was extremely old and felt that old familiar ache. She could feel that old, very familiar ache, childhood ache, a childhood fear that many kids have of their mothers passing away. This is the fear I think everyone can relate to, because when we are children, the person we are most attached to is our mother. Our mother is almost like an extension of ourselves when we are kids. We look at our mother in order to, learn how to survive, in order to know what we are supposed to do next. Our mother feeds us, takes care of us. It's literally, we cannot imagine a life without our mothers when we are kids, when we are children. So, this familiar childhood fear that what will happen to me if my mother disappears or if my mother dies, it's a very primal fear, and I think this is a fear that everyone can relate to. And this is the exact kind of fear the poet also felt at this point, even though she was not a kid anymore, even though she was not a child anymore. It's almost as if seeing her mother on the brink of death brought back that old, familiar childhood fear that she was so used to when she was a kid. But all I said was, see you soon, Amma. She did not voice that fear. She did not give voice to that fear. She did not express her anxiety to her mother, that, mother, I'm really afraid that you're not taking care of yourself and I don't know what to do, what I will do with myself if you were to die. She does not give voice to that anxiety. She does not vocalize that fear. She just departs on a positive note and says, see you soon, Amma, as in the hope of seeing her mother again. The certainty that, almost a kind of forced certainty that, no, nothing untoward will happen to her mother between this meeting and the next. She doesn't know when she's going to meet her mother again, but she's just hoping that nothing happens to her mother, and her mother is still alive and still very much active when she meets her next time. So she says, "See you soon." She wants to see her again. So, "see you soon" carries that hope that she believes somewhere, she wants to believe, she's holding on to the hope that nothing will happen to her mother and she'll be alive when they meet the next time, that there will be a next time when they meet. And all I did was smile and smile and smile. Once again, it's a classic case of displacement. Displacement is when you displace, when you try to replace one emotion, one dominant emotion with another emotion. So here, even though she was crumbling inside in pain and fear, what she chose to show to the outside world is a smile, as if she was extremely happy, because she did not want her mother to get a clue of her anxiety and feel anxious or feel the pain herself as well. Because if the mother gets to know that my daughter is worrying about my death, she'll also start worrying about her death. Because she, out of all the people, knew that she was very old and there wasn't much left to her life anymore. So the daughter did not want her mother to feel the same kind of fear about her own life right at the moment when they were parting. She wanted to leave her mother in good spirits. She wanted to part on a positive note so that if it turns out to be their last meeting indeed, she can at least tell herself that it ended well. It can also be interpreted as the poet not wanting to accept the reality herself, almost as if she's in denial. That's why, even though she's crumbling inside, she's absolutely heartbroken and shattering on the inside. She doesn't want to show it on the outside. It's as if the poet kind of believes that if she does not come face to face with the reality won't play out for her. It's as if she does not acknowledge the reality won't manifest for her. So that is why she's negating all the negative emotions that are attached to it and choosing to be positive, choosing to show up with a smile and not a frown or not with an anxious look on her face. So that is it, the explanation of the poem. Now let me talk in general about what this poem is, its thematic implications, the imagery, symbolism, and all of that jazz. So Kamala Das's poem, My Mother at 66, it kind of blends personal grief with universal fears of loss, using a simple airport drive to unpack aging's cruelty. So the poem is written in free verse, as in there is no rhyme, no rhyming structure to it. And this free verse structure actually mimics the poet's stream of suppressed emotions. Human mind is messy. Human life doesn't follow a particular unilinear path, right? So free verse poems are written to express that chaos, the chaos of the human mind, the chaos of the human emotions, and the messiness of human life. So that is why Kamala Das uses free verse here. Kamala Das uses free verse in a lot of her poems actually. You'll rarely find Kamala Das's poems which are like perfectly rhymed. So she uses free verse here too to mimic her stream of suppressed emotions. The emotions that are moving from shock to a stoic farewell. Stoic means almost an emotionless farewell or an attempt to suppress your emotions as much as you can. Now, to talk about the themes of the poem a bit, aging, mortality dominate the poem. These two themes, aging and mortality, it's symbolized by the mother's ashen, corpse like face and wan, pale winter moon, foreshadowing death's inevitability. The old familiar ache that the poet feels revives the childhood terror of separation, underscoring life's cycle, youth's vitality against old age's stagnation. Familial love persists through the poet's denial, distracting via external life symbols while concealing pain to spare her mother. Now, talking about the imagery and symbolism, the corpse simile evokes lifelessness, sprinting trees and shrieking children contrast as life's vigor, highlighting vitality's loss. So, corpse equals lifelessness. Young trees, merry children, they are the equivalent of life, vitality. When you say that something is full of life, that is what vitality means. The late winter's moon suggests dimming beauty, not horror, yet it also signals endings, end of something, end of a cycle. Late winter, so the entire seasonal cycle is over, and moon itself. end of an entire day. Okay, so it signals endings. There are ellipses at the end of the poem after smile. There are dot, 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 dot. That is the ellipsis. And what it signifies is the lingering, unspoken despair, amplifying emotional numbness. It's as if the pain goes on. If it was just one full stop, it would have ended there. But it's an ellipsis, which means it's a continuous process. It's something that is going on and on and on, even if you don't want it to. So, that lingering feeling of grief, despair, it amplifies the emotional numbness that the poet might be feeling. Now, some poetic devices. Number one, simile, ashen like that of a corpse. It's a straightforward simile, a comparison that is being made using the word like. If you use the word as and like in a comparison, for example, as sweet as sugar, as bitter as gourd, she was pretty like a peacock, like, as. Whenever you're comparing one thing to another using the words like and as, it's a simile. We have a straightforward simile here, ashen like that of a corpse. So that is a simile. And then we also have another simile here. Yes, pale as a late winter's moon. Okay, so one like and one as simile. Ashen like that of a corpse, pale as a late winter's moon. Two similes we have here. Then we have repetition in the poem, which is this tripled last line where we have smile and smile and smile. So that is a repetition. It masks the heartbreak. It echoes the forced optimism that the poet is trying to indulge in so that she can completely deny the negative emotions that she's feeling. Then we also have personification in the poem, trees sprinting, which I already explained to you. The number one way you can identify a personification is when a non-human, non-animal, non-living entity is being shown as doing human-like activities, okay? So that is how you can identify personification. And also in most cases, personifications are signified with capital letters for the words that are being personified. Here you have young trees in capital letters. So trees sprinting, that is a personification, and it evokes the youthful sprint from mortality. Now, there is also an emotional arc in this poem. The poet's entire journey from her parents' home to airport. It's like a cycle of realization, trying to distract oneself from that realization, to finally a numb acceptance of the reality. And it mirrors the denial stages. The 5 stages of grief. That is what it mirrors. Her final, see you soon, Amma, belies finality's dread, making the poem relatable for anyone facing parental decline. This restraint elevates raw pain into poignant universality. Now, you might get a question, do you think this poem is autobiographical? If you get a question like this, obviously, yes, it is autobiographical because Kamala Das's mother herself was a literary giant. Just like Kamala Das was a very famous writer, her mother was also a very, very famous writer. And the name of her mother was Balamani Amma. Okay, Balamani Amma, and she was also aging. And Kamala Das's poem draws from her own real life fears of losing her aging mother, Balamani Amma, a renowned Malayalam poet who lived until she was 88 years old. So this poem's airport parting scene and the old familiar ache that the poet talks about echoes Das's own documented childhood insecurities about maternal separation, resurfacing amid her mother's frailty. The corpse-like image that you have here, this image literally stems from the visceral observations of Kamala Das of her Amma's decline, amplifying this universal daughterly dread of losing their mothers someday. So that is the explanation of the poem. I don't want to make this video too long. I hope the poem is clear to you now. I hope you've understood what it means and what the different symbols are, what the different literary devices are. It's a fairly easy poem. There's not much to unpack. I do have all the notes, MCQs, long questions, and short questions that you can get from this poem for your CBSE exams. If you want those, please contact me in the email ID given in the description below. If you contact me in the email ID, I will be sending the notes, MCQs, all the other materials to you directly in your inbox. Thank you so much. I hope this lesson was useful. See you once again in the next lesson. Bye bye.